Hello, good evening. I'm Oral Gibbs, and welcome to Oral Gibbs Live. And with me this evening, I have from French St. Martin, member of the French Parliament, MP, Mr. Gibbs. How you doing, sir?
Good evening, Oral.
Is everything under control?
Everything is okay.
When is the election on the French side?
Good question. Well, election is actually March 2017, but we do not have as yet any precise date. That we will have a decree, I think, in the month of November to settle out the exact date.
So I see your opposition is already coming after you, man.
Well, yes, as it could have been expected. But as I say, there's no opposition as long as you don't have any declare candidate for an election, which I did last week, which is part of a process that I try to respect. We have been elected in opposition in 2012. Since then, we haven't stopped working, and we ameliorated our program. We try and take in considerations the things that the people wanted to see happen, and we created a certain amount of things in our party, because as I always said, we were the only political party constituted as it is today, we in our timing, we invited our members of our party to indicate the fact that I will be a candidate. First, you talk to your family, and I'm talking about my political family, and then we did an open letter to the population so that they can be also involved in that decision that is taken by our half, and then later on we will do it on a, I would say, more open way as we did in 2012. So we have a procedure that we try to respect, and that our time frame is according to the agenda that we fix to ourselves for a yearly program, sorry.
No, as a member of the French Parliament, you represent St. Martin and St. Barts?
Absolutely. Yeah. But I'm member of Parliament for St. Martin and St. Barts, but I'm also island councillor in St. Martin, French side.
And that you're in opposition that day?
Opposition, yeah. Leader of opposition.
Now, what's this whole thing about you wanting to build a prison to incarcerate St. Martiners?
Well, Oral, to be honest, it's not a fact of me wanting a prison. It's a fact that there's two things that are very important. The first thing is that if you want a justice that is the same for everyone on a French territory, whether you're in France metropolitan or you're in an overseas department, you need to have the same justice for the people. Having the same justice means that you need all the elements for that justice. You need to have the, I would say, reprehending those that are doing bad things, if we can say so. You need to have afterwards the court, where you have the judges that judges and take decisions, and then you have thirdly the sanction. And that part is missing, because if you have a justice sanction, you don't have the element where you put the sanction. Sanction can be a fine, but sanction can be jail. The problem is that we don't have that third part on our side of the island. That's the first point. For justice to be executed in the best manner, you need those 3 points. Now, the other thing, and that's the motive of my decision, the motivation of my decision. Do you imagine when you have a sentence that sends you to jail, when you're a French citizen and you have been judged in the French system in St. Martin, if it's jail, you have to go to Guadeloupe, which means, first of all, we take a plane, you have 3 gendarmes to bring you to Pointe-à-Pitre, then you have other gendarmes that picks you up, brings you to Bastère, if the Bastère you're going, and now when you're there, you're off your island, you're off contact of your family, of your friends, of your wife or your husband. So you're given out to your own self. You don't have the visits as you could have them, like someone who's from Guadeloupe and locked up in Guadeloupe. And that's something that I've been hearing all these years for some families. I mean, nobody wishes you to be in jail, but sometimes mistakes can happen, and you find yourself in a situation, and here you go, you're abroad, and you don't have the support. Rehabilitation when you're in prison is also the fact of you having the visit of your family, of your friends. I mean, it's not because you made a mistake that you have to be sanctioned of all contact with your family, and that's a cost. And not all families can go every week or every day or every month to visit their close who are in jail. And for all those reasons, Oral, I find it just that we have at least something where we can have our prisoners on our island and give them the privilege to have also the visit of their close family or their friends, as I said. And that's one of the real motivation, but also the law. It's not a begging, it's the law that provides the fact that you have a justice that has to be equal on each territory. And what was missing here was a jail. St. Martin that side has their own jail, 25 kilometers square. So I don't understand the polemic that one of my opponents made about it, because it was not in the sense of doing a jail to lock up our people. It's doing a jail because in every system, and in every social system, you have a jail. So that's one of the main reasons.
So it's not that you are happy to have all people locked up in prison at all?
Of course not.
Okay.
Of course not. How could I dare be happy about that? I would love a society without police, without gendarmes. I would like a world without army. But you and I know for a fact that today that's not possible. So it's the same for the jail. That's not what we want. We prefer to have other things, and that doesn't mean that we do not fight on other aspects, because the same person who made the polemic about that is in education. And on education level, I've been fighting to have our own academy on French St. Martin and not being going through Guadeloupe decision for St. Martin. So I fight in Parliament to have our academy in St. Martin, and we didn't get the academy, but we got something getting close to it, and that doesn't mean that we should stop the fight. The contrary, we would be continuing. So you see, we fight on all different levels, but that's the one they choose to tackle, because election, as you said, is pretty close, so some people need to make some lip service.
So the prison, is it still going to be built on French St. Martin? Or?
Well, I got the minister, we had the minister not long ago, the Minister of Justice, actually, that came and brought some, I would say, answers to the question that we had. Concerning the prison, he was very clear. It's not voted as yet, but there are certain criteria that we need to find out. I mean, more in detail and before they take a decision, because we have to agree. Yeah? It's a financial decision also. It's a lot of money involved, but it's also at the key of that. I would say aspect, jobs creation. Because if you have a jail, you need to have people working in that jail. So there's a kind of economy going on there. You need to have people trained to be also part of that process, to be employed as personnel in that sector. But as I say again, decision will be taken in further notice. But all the information have been given to the minister, and there was a meeting with all the staff of justice. So they should have everything to decide whether we would start with something light before, and then we will increase after, but something needs to be done.
Even when a prison is built, who will cover the cost? Is it the state?
State, yes.
So then there will be no cost to the collectivity?
No. Maybe we can participate by giving the property, but actually we augment the capacity of our justice by having more personnel, more, I would say, legal workers, and we extend the justice to the old library that we had in the back.
Yeah.
And that's the collectivity of Saint Martin that give, actually there was an exchange, but they gave those premises so that it can extend the courthouse, and Saint Bart's give financial participation because Saint Bart is also in that process. So you see, it's the charge of the state, but sometimes you have the collectivity that also put a little input because it is needed. It is certain things that we need for better functioning of certain of our institutions.
The last time that you were in the program, you had already was what, 2 years in office?
Yes.
Yeah.
2 years.
And looking back at that time and now, are you happy about your accomplishment? Do you feel you have accomplished, or you feel you have more things you should accomplish?
Yeah. Well, you always have more to learn, and that's what's great about it. But to answer your question precisely, yes, or I really believe I got a lot of experience that I didn't before, at least on that field. Knowing politics at the level of state is something that is important because you understand the ins and outs of that functioning that you don't really see from here. You open your agenda to more relations, and yes, it's something. It's a great experience. Gives you more maturity. I think I gain a lot more maturity, politically speaking, and I can see it in my functioning in Saint Martin, but also in Paris, because it's a different level of execution, and it's sometimes rewarding because it is so difficult that when you get something, it is pretty much rewarding. What about that's what I'm trying as at the best of my capacities for this island, and of course for Saint Bart's, because I'm also the deputy for Saint Bart's.
Now, the mainland, there's quite an issue there on the French side. There are some situations where the state moved in, moved people who've occupied these lands for decades, actually. What's the problem there? Well,
exactly to understand, Saint Martin did not have the domain came in, the what you call les 50 pas géométriques, came in the 70s, because before it was only Guadeloupe that had domain land. Saint Martin and Saint Barth did not have domain land. And one of the préfets at the time realized, oh, Saint Martin doesn't have no domain land, and so we have to take a decree for that. And that was done. So from that time, we started having some problems because...
What happened prior to that then? Prior to that,
there was no domain. Yeah, there was no domain. That's why you see today on certain areas, you would see houses there. So on those premises, because at the time there was no domain. Nevertheless, from the time the law came in on us in the 70s, certain part of the properties became domain. But construction still been going on, and that's why today there's certain part of the French side where there's those problems of people not being able to get their title. And I say there's two ways of saying it. It's either we leave them in that situation and we will go nowhere for either the states, either the collectivité, either the person who are living there. Either we take a picture of the situation and we stabilize and we give deeds to all those persons on those premises, in order for them, first of all, to be owner, because no one is going to knock down their houses or their businesses. That's a fact. That's a fact. If it was the case, it would have been done from before. But when you have families living there for so long, I think the best solution today is to try to solve those situations. But when others are lip servicing on those issues, one thing needs to be known. If we as collectivity, we have the competencies to manage the files and applications on those so-called domain land, the state is still owner of those parcels and has this decision to make. And that's what we need to fight on, and that's what, as a parliamentarian, I'm working on with some professors specialized in those issues, because Corsica has the same problem, exactly the same problem, and we are working closely with the professor to be able to bring up a bill to make that all these overseas departments that are facing the same situation can give the competencies to the collectivities or to the departments or to the regions so that they can solve that situation, because it's a burden for those people. And look at the benefit of it. Once those people have their deed, they can put their property or engage their property as a collateral to get funding for a business, for, renovating their house, for beautifying their house, for getting electricity legally, for getting a certain amount of things. On the other hand, the government can receive taxes because building registered certain incomes due to the fact that you have a property registered in due form. So everybody would be happy. And this is the reason why we need to process as quick as possible to solve those situations. But we cannot say anything and we cannot do anything, like I hear constantly on the media on the French side. I know it's a popular topic, but not because it's popular we should brainstorm and fool the people. We need to give the right information, we need to give the right tools in order to be able to do what we want for that part of the population.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You see, a lot of people on the French side of St. Martin today, they're not happy with the state. They feel the state has been meddling in their affairs. And if you look back to what you said earlier, when the state decided to claim domain land on French St. Martin prior to 1970, there was no domain land. Do you see now how people feel about the state? Because prior to that, we were free. No, the state is saying, look, you can't do X, Y, Z.
Exactly, Oral, but this is the situation we are facing today. I was not in the 1970s at that time in handling affairs to be able to take a decision against what happened. I am here today and we have to face a situation. It's like the parents and the children. The parents have authority on children and they're not always doing the right things towards the children, and the children complains. Well, it's the same thing with us. Today we need to see now how we solve the situation. And I don't believe that bringing hope to people by telling them any kind of nonsense that you in 2 months you will regulate the situation. I've heard that on the radio. I mean, come on. Do you know one government today who do not want to give deeds to their population? So if that's not the case, it's because there is a problem. It's because there's a competence situation that we need to solve before. And we need to be, and this is what I've learned, we need to be professional. We need to be technical. The answers to give to that population is, yes, we want to solve your problems, but we want to solve your problems in a legal way, because it is not an easy matter. There are certain things that needs to be done before. I'm preparing those technical answers, and I will be giving the population in the close future the answers to how I would handle the situation. And very soon I will be interrogating the state on something that we need to put before in place, which I always say, in French we say, on ne met pas la charrue avant les bœufs, we do not put the carriage before the horse. Well, there are certain things to put in place before we get to that step, and that's going to be done pretty soon.
But, let me ask you this question, maybe you can take off your politician hat for the time. You are a lawyer by profession, a notary, right?
Yes.
So you have a pretty good idea of this problem.
Correct.
Prior to politics.
Correct.
And before you got into politics, did you see a lot of people complaining about this issue?
Yes, of course. I've helped a lot of people to get their land title regulated when I could have. I did it. Even those that were not in domain, people who were in succession, with families who had titles but there were not titles, but from not even grandparents, but great-great-great-grandparents, and we could not find back the entire succession. So we did certain documents, legally speaking, which was by prescription rights. When we couldn't find all the heirs, we tried to regulate them by prescription rights. And I proposed to states to go through also prescription rights for people who are living on domains land for more than 30 years. I mean, Sandy Ground is one of them. Grand Cause is another one. French Quarter, a little bit in cul-de-sac. But these areas, people were living there for umpteen years. Is it normal to leave them in that situation? This is a concept that I propose. You know, I did my, in French we say a mémoire. When you graduate, you do an essay on something specifically, and it's a thesis, a thesis. And I did it on the prescription rights. And this is something because I knew that this was important for my population. And this is something that I propose also to state that after a certain amount of years, it is just normal that the person prescribe on those rights. You have been living there in some time, and most of them, they have electricity, they have water. I mean, this is to take in consideration. Of course, this is something that is very sensitive, as you said, for a notary.
You know, on Dutton, Martin, we have a lot of problems with many families with succession property. Is it the same thing on French and Martin?
Yes. Being as a notary, I saw these families with succession. And you know what? It's funny that you said that because most of the time they want to get out their succession. They want to divide their property, but two things is a burden. The first is that their land is non-constructible. Practically 3/4 of the land on the French side are non-constructible.
Why is that?
Secondly, because that's in the urban
urban development zoning.
Most of their properties are non-constructible. Secondly, most of the time it's financial situation where succession fees were too high and that discouraged. So those 2 points discouraged certain families. So I proposed, I suggest, to the collectivité 2 years ago to I would say exonerate these families that want to solve their succession of their succession fees. And lately, not long ago, beginning of this year, the collectivité finally took a deliberation in order to exonerate people who want to come out of their end division to take part at the notary office and finalize their succession situation. They limited to 2017, but I think that in those matters, that should be all time. That should be all year, because when your father transmits to you, you're supposed to be able also to transmit to your children. And it's not only on a period of time, it's all the time. So if I would be elected, I know that's one of the points that I would make sure have it for the years to come.
Let me ask you, there was an issue with some of the families in French cul-de-sac, the state, and the Lawrence family, some others. Has that problem been resolved?
Well, there are many problems of
the whole land issue there and the state and so forth.
But if we're talking about the same family, I presume that it's just before the garbage disposal in cul-de-sac, and their property is now, I would say, there's what we call in French a lotissement, house development.
Yeah.
The development went on, yeah.
And then there's the other family as you turn to go into French cul-de-sac, and I think that's the Lawrence there on the corner. There was some issue with the airport and all of that.
Oh, yes.
Was that resolved?
No. That's still on standby. Actually, it's for the extension of the airport, where the collectivity needs to purchase their property so that the airport management can do the extension of the runway. Because basically, when the airport was giving for managing to a company by a bid officially, the collectivité, on another hand, was supposed to purchase the land for the construction of that extension. And up to today, that's a situation because Mr. Lawrence said it himself that he is still waiting for the collectivity to purchase his property, for which it was putting a reserve for all these years, and he couldn't do anything with it. And I mean, it's about time. Yes,
unfair. It's kind of unfair.
It's very unfair. It's very unfair. I had a discussion with him, and well, again, you know, I'm just opposition. I'm not majority, so I think I have a way to get out of that situation, so that the Lawrence family gets their due what was held as a reserve for all these years, and I think that will be just, I would say, normal that this comes to an end. But also for the development of the airport, how could you ask the company who is actually managing to modify, which they are doing still,
Right.
but to modify the buildings and not being able to integrate more commercial airlines on the airport or more private flights because of the extension of the runway that cannot be done.
And I had a number of problems, complaints from people on Friends and Martin, especially when it comes to property around the water, that some people will get permission from the state while others have difficulty, again, right in French cul-de-sac in that area. Are you familiar with that, Ole?
You know, I will talk on the general base. Of course, there will always be those that are happy because they got something and those that will be unhappy because they haven't gotten authorization. Now, as a leader, you need to have a vision of development of your territory, and that's why you have to set rules and regulations. And in that vision, if there's a development of something that gives and authorize certain things, well, it's just normal that it has to be given. But on another hand, you cannot just give everything anyway, anyhow. But if you don't have rules and regulations that you apply the same way for everyone, you will have this kind of situation. And that's what I'm saying. In order to put in place rules and regulations, you need to have a vision. You need to have a vision of where you want to send your country, where you want to bring your people, what you want to develop for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And from there, you know what are the type of authorization that you can give, and this situation.
So it's kind of tough, huh?
Well, it's tough when you're not clear enough. When there's too much questions to be asked, is because your rules and regulations are not defined and clarified enough.
All right, I tell you what.
When there's clarity, there's never a problem.
Exactly.
It's either you stop at a stoplight or you pass. But if you pass, you know you'll be fine.
There's also some issues with some of the other politicians in that they don't consider you a true Saint Martiner because, well, your father is from Saint Martin, but your mother is a French European. And is that an issue you're confronted with all the time with your opposition at times?
Well, yeah.
The black and white issue thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah. As you mentioned, my father is black and my mother is white. And as I said many times, I will not excuse myself for being who I am. I'm proud to be who I am. I am proud to be in the family that I am in. I'm proud of the education that my parents give to me. And to those that are still on that level of doing politics, I find that pitiful. And I just look above that, Oral. I think what is important is what the people think, what the people see, what the people believe, what you have to bring to them, what you have to suggest to them, what you're overseeing for your country. And, you know, my conception and my philosophy of life is integrating everyone that wants to make a better day for this island. And that's how I will operate, and that's how I always operate. You know, we have more than 100 different nationalities on this territory. I think having a little rock like this with so much different nationality and not having a war, that's blissful. And if we have to go in that type of debate about he's more white because his mother's white, or he's more black because his father's black, or whatever, if you look, we're all part of a mixture, some way, somehow.
Why do you think that's being brought up so often?
You know, so I don't even ask myself that question. I leave it to what it is, and it's not something that will occupy most of my time questioning myself. Sometimes it's hurtful. I pass that period. Today I go forward. I listen, and I leave it pass behind my head.
Okay. You know, let me open up the line. 5422170 is our telephone number. 5422170. I have a question or comment for MP Daniel Gibbs. You know, it's One of the things that you've always spoken about here in the program and all of us is cooperation. And there are a number of areas where I think I'm beginning to see some form of cooperation. I think one of it has to do with the sewage problem. And I don't know how far they are with that one.
Well, they are actually working on it. They are actually working on it still. There was a tripartite meeting where they mentioned all what was supposed to be done and how they are going to cooperate on that matter. But I'm not sure that something has came to a conclusion as yet. We will have that, I guess, in the next months, maybe next year, if everything goes okay. What is important in what you just said, Oriel, I want to come back and reflect on. I have been saying for many years, and that's not since this year, last year, the year before. I even mentioned it in 2010 on the radio on the Dutch side. And I explained that nothing, and now we have to be very vigilant on this, nothing can happen on this island if there's not a steady cooperation, if there's not a real cooperation. And when I talk in terms of real, I really mean it. I mean, what it takes for us today to have an institution, because I always say we are Europe before Europe. With 32 countries, Europe got to make a congress with all different nations, all different countries that constitute Europe to discuss matters of cooperation and how they're going to tackle this or this subject. And we with two different nationalities, two different nations, why can't we do a United Congress French and Dutch? I call it United Congress French and Dutch. The principle is very simple. We integrate the executive of the Dutch side. We integrate the executive of the French side. And every year we will have a rotation in the presidency. 1 year it will be the president of the Collectivité of Saint Martin. 1 year it will be the prime minister of Dutch Saint Martin. And when the presidency is on the French side, it's the island council that will be receiving the Dutch side, and vice versa. So financially, it's not even a problem. It's just that twice a year we will be taking decisions on areas we want to cooperate in. The subject you just mentioned is one of the most important subjects because it affects our island. Sewage is a real situation today that for a tourism or a touristic island, we can have, enormous consequences. The garbage situation is one. The road net service can be also a situation when on high season we have traffic jam more and more each year. Look what is happening in St. Bart's, where it's becoming a burden for St. Bart's. We have major points. Today I see there's a kind of cooperation going on with the health sector, which is pretty fine, which is very interesting. But we need to go further. We have tourism. 90% of our activity is based on tourism. I think this is one of the points that we're supposed to be able to cooperate on. And when I talk about United Congress French and Dutch, it's not only talking about something or doing lip service on something. The reason for that is because I want us to deliberate on things that we decided on. I want us to engage ourselves, not do like we do every 11th of November. We sign a MOU. Every 11th of November, we change the line, we change a phrase, we change a point, and then we change the date, and the next day, we forgot about that agreement that we had. But when you tackle a deliberation in our bill, call it a bill, in that institution, you need both executives to sign. It's not only a president or a prime minister, it's a whole executive body that will be taking that decision. So tomorrow, if you want to change the decision, you need to put in the agenda, and you need to have both bodies to come back and sit on that issue. So you will have a corporation more transparent, because what is important is not the fact of saying we want you to cooperate on these issues, you the Dutch side or you the French side, but we want people to know who agree with cooperating in that specific area, whatever would be choose, and who does not. Because it's important. According to the decision that you will be taking, I have to fix my side. So people understand better how things are functioning. And I believe that for good political or good government management. The populations needs to be informed of what is going on, what is taking place, how things are reaching to this point, why we are not taking this decision, and why we are taking this other decision. This is something that is very important in my way of seeing managing on this island, especially when the territory is small. News goes fast. Oh, why did this government did that? Because he didn't want. No. When you are transparent, you stop those tacky. And people feel more at ease. Why do you think today that the population sees politicians like, I won't even give you the bad image that they can be giving. You know it yourself. You know what people will be saying. It's because we do not give this transparency that we owe to the population. And I believe that if we do it this way, then they will understand more the inside and the outside of the decision making, and maybe it would even be in favor of government, because then you'll be able to have a better understanding of the functioning of the government.
You alluded just a while ago to cooperation in terms of in the medical area.
Yes.
But and I'm not too familiar with the French system, but what I understand that France is one of the best countries in the world when it comes to health care for its citizens.
Yes.
And at the same time...
Costs us a lot of money, eh?
Exactly. At the same time, I understand, though, that the French government, along with many other European governments, have decided to mainly prescribe generic medication in order to save money.
Yes.
On this side of the island, many people believe that generic medication is not good.
Oh.
But then again, if you have the French government, the British government, many other European governments saying, look, this is the way we have to go.
Yeah.
Is it an issue in the French?
Well, it's not really forbidden. Your doctor can
Still prescribe you
the medication, the real one. When I say the real one, the non-generic.
The main brand, yeah.
Okay, the main brand. And when you go to the pharmacy, the first thing they bring to you is a generic.
Right.
You can ask for the main brand.
And you'll get it.
And you will get it because your doctor gave you on your prescription the main brand. But if the doctor gives you the generic, they will have to give you generic. It's only if you put the main brand that they will present and they will say, no, but it's the same thing. So no, but I want the main brand because I prefer the main brand. They will give you, it's not an obligation. It becomes an obligation once the doctor gives you the prescription of the generic. But I think the French system is one of the most controlled system in which everything has to be checked. Everything has to have administrative authorization. So it's difficult. Things has been proved. And so on one hand, it's a burden, but on another hand, it's a safety for us, the consumers. So I think that today maybe is an issue, but tomorrow people will be very much adapted to that.
Yeah.
Because it is going to save a lot of money. Yeah. And it's a game, again, with big brandings that have a monopoly. And sometimes you have another medication, it's exactly the same, but much cheaper. But in order to make the business function, they will enforce the main branding. But that's the economics of how the world turns.
Yeah. Article 74 and French Saint Martin as overseas territory. What's happening there?
Article 74.
I mean, I'm still confused with this thing because it seems like people are not happy. The same people who supported it a few years ago.
Well, you see, they say in French, you know what's la gale, that sickness that your dog have when he loses his skin. Yeah. They say when you want to kill your dog, you accuse him of having that, right? So that's the same thing. You cannot accuse a setting. We have been asking for a certain amount of autonomy, and we wanted to have certain competences to manage them ourselves. And now we have them.
You complain.
We complain. Oh, we don't get this from France. We don't. I mean, people, we need to wake up. It's not the tool that is bad. It is those that are functioning with those tools. And it's not from today. It's from much before, from the beginning. And that's what I said. I was part of the team, and I said what I had to say at the time. We're not using our tool as much as we should. I always say, you have a Ferrari, you drive a Ferrari, you cannot drive a Ferrari like a Hyundai.
Let me take a call if you please. All right. Oral Gibbs live on call. Hello.
My respect
Good evening.
to you and your guest. But I hope your guest, being a parliamentarian, is not in harmony with generic medicine given to the people. Understand this. Economically, we are more stronger than some of the neighboring islands, and they are not giving their inhabitants, their people, generic medicine. What do they want to do? Are we to be considered being practiced upon as guinea pigs or some sort of a thing? Take sense of nonsense. You are an intelligent gentleman. Please do not condone harmoniously joining with the Dutch side when it comes about in question to medicines and what. Do not do that. Remember this. You have children, I guess. You have children, isn't it?
2, yes.
You have children.
Yes.
Yes, the answer is said too.
Would you like your children and grandchildren to be stuffed and fed on generic medicine?
Well,
It's better by far then
well,
that that we left for this gentleman.
Let MP Gibbs please respond to your.
Something or whatever. Was Bush tea or whatever. Go back to Bush tea in our system.
Okay.
Or something like that. But not a generic medicine.
Okay.
They have me here in the state.
I understand clearly what you.
Coughing, side effect. And coughing, coughing, all this kind of a thing.
Okay, let me have MP Gibbs respond to you. And I asked that question not to make a problem here, but just to highlight the difference between both sides of the island, basically. But let me have him respond to you, Doug, and thanks for calling, all right? Okay.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, caller, and I'm sorry if we didn't understand ourselves on that. Yes, effectively, the question that was asked to me was there's a cooperation between the French side and Dutch side in terms of health affairs, and I find that it was a good thing. And the question that was asked to me is, how do we manage with the fact that on the Dutch side we do not want to use generic medicine, and on the French side that is a possibility. So we were interacting about that, but nevertheless I would take on my behalf to say that we have to go to generic medication. I was saying that on the French side, and I was explaining how it functions on the French side, that when the doctor gives you a prescription and he gives you the main branding of the medication, that's what the pharmacy needs to give you. But as it is authorized under French law, they propose the generic medicine, and you have the right to refuse. So, and I understand that on this side of the island, that's the position that is taken, and I respect that position. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I was not emphasizing in the fact of saying that they have to come to that. In the future, no. I myself when I ask for medication, if I remember when I give my prescription, I do ask for the main brand, and I prefer the main brand than the generic medication. But sometimes, I mean, I do take what they give me, and that's it. But I'm sorry, Carla, if we had a misunderstanding on the topic, but I was never on my behalf enforcing either side to go in one direction.
No, I only brought up because I know, you know.
But I like my bush tea though, and I'll stick to that.
I think we got to go back to taking more of our own local bush medication sometimes, you know. Instead of
No, but you know, sometimes they say the grandmother and the grandparents' recipes are the best, and
Yeah.
sometimes, you know, as a gentleman was saying, sometimes a good bush tea, you use this bush and that bush, and it works. Sometimes it's psychological, but for certain people it works, and why not?
Yeah. So a number of things happening on the island, but March is still far away, right?
Yes. It's far and it's close at the same time. It's far because it's a long campaign, but when you get on the date, you realize, you say, wow, that passed so quick. As a matter of fact, we are already in summertime, and yesterday we were in January. So, no, I think you need time to put things in place.
But there are regulations?
You need time to inform. Oh, yes.
There's a lot of, in fact, you can't spend how you want, right?
No. I know. Listen, the last election in 2012, it was 24,000 and some change for election. Between 24 and 27, which is not a big difference.
Per party?
But it's
per person.
Per person, and for the 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
So it's cheap to run on the French side then.
Well, it's that's the law, and that's how it is. But I think it needs to elevate a little bit more in the value, because it's complicated. The other election, which was my election for parliamentarian election, it was 50,000. So you see, there's no real difference between one election and the other one, because it's the same voting. It's just a different election. So I think that part, the first part, needs to be a little bit reserved.
But it's got.
You see, the Dutch side was overdoing it, and the French side is underdoing it. So there's a big difference between the both. But we need to find a just middle. And election is a lot of time. Of course, it's money also that is involved. It's pretty much regulated. Sutton got excluded from their presidency for not respecting their accounts.
Overspending.
So it's something, overspending. So it's something that you need to look at very carefully, as far as I'm concerned. And what I would suggest to the other candidate this time is to have an accountant, a real accountant.
So have an accountant to handle your affairs.
Yes, I said a real one.
But you see, on the Dutch side now, how they have it is that you must have a recognized accountant firm handle your accounting. You just can't pick
Which
up
I can understand.
Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Which I can understand. Which is perfect, because then you have a professional, and you cannot make any mistakes.
Let me take some calls if you are. Oral Gibbs Live and call. Hello.
Yes, good evening, Oral.
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
Hi, and good evening to your guest.
Good evening, sir.
You got a couple old license plates from the Dutch side on the vehicle of French side driving, but they only staying on the French side. They're not coming over to the Dutch side. The number plate of the year before.
All old plates, actually. Very old plates. Some 3-4 years old.
Yeah.
And the hurtful part, they don't have no insurance. One of the taxi drivers had an incident where one of those plate hit, and then no insurance. What next?
Yeah, but well, if I may answer, it's the same problem that if you have a Dutch number plate of the year before and no insurance, it's not a better situation. But I agree with you, caller. I mean, it has to be punished because you're not allowed to travel with the license plate that is not the one that has to be on at that time. Please know that we do not have any more license plate that you change every year. We have a license plate that you keep for life. So it's just that now they wanted to installate a tax that you pay
annually,
but you keep the same number plate.
I think
different to
I think what
different
he's
to your
saying is
system.
that on the front side, he's seeing vehicles driving Dutch side number plate, old plates
Speaking about the Dutch license plate
on vehicles on the front side.
and it
Oh.
has been expired for the past 3-4 years and
Okay.
and it's still on the
Front
car, on
side.
the front side
Yeah.
driving.
Okay, and they stay on the front.
And
Yeah.
then they do not have
Okay, he got it.
insurance.
Yeah, he got
Okay.
it.
And when they hit you, no insurance. So what next?
I mean, there's a law for that. That means they should be condemned. They should be condemned.
The authorities on both sides, they got to come together because if a license plate is for the past 5 years passed already, why is on the front
Well, the
side?
gendarme should just do their job.
Yeah.
And
Well-
nobody's stopping nobody.
Well, you see, sir, for that type of cooperation and police affairs, I voted a bill, actually a treaty, that permits both sides, police, to be able to cooperate together. And that today is effective, and maybe this can be one of the points of their agenda.
Caller, thanks for calling. I want to speak.
Anyway,
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right. Oral Gibbs Live, your caller. Hello. Is there a caller? All right, didn't stick around. Anyway, yeah.
They will call back.
Yeah, so that's a big problem. I drive around the front side and I see all these plates from the Dutch side on cars, and they're very old plates, and I wonder why.
Why they are still running on
Yeah.
the front side and
We're
not
not
coming
doing-
over? Yeah, well, I mean, we understand the reason why, but that should be sanctioned.
Yeah.
I cannot say nothing more
Right.
than these things should not be tolerated. That's a fact, because it's a danger for themselves, but it's a danger for you, because you cannot have insurance
Right.
for your car if you don't show that you change your license plate.
Right.
So that makes it difficult the day that you have an accident, and you cannot have the other part responding financially to what the damage you did to your car.
But I'll tell you one thing is that if I'm going to have an accident happen to me, I prefer it happen on the front side. Now you'll say this sounds strange,
Yes.
but when you look at the insurance coverage per person in a vehicle on the Dutch side, it's extremely low. When you look at the front side, it's a big difference.
Yes.
The-
That's why insurance is more expensive.
yeah,
But
Yeah.
because the coverage, as you say, it's is much more.
it can run to €1 million.
Of course.
And here it's just 90,000 guilders.
But on the other hand, I would say something. What is the cost of a life?
Yeah,
I mean, it's a loss emotionally,
yeah.
but it's a loss also. It's funny to say this, but I mean, what's the value of taking a life?
Yeah.
There's no value to that.
Yeah, so we just about out of time. Only have about a minute and a half. So, is there anything else you want to add that we should know about?
I always happy to be here, Oral, because I know that we have some people on the Dutch side that that also comes on the French side, and vice versa. It's always interesting to have as a guest someone from the other side of the island, but we also enjoy having guests from your side, and we get to learn more. I think we need today to function as people in terms of cooperation, not only in words but also in action. And if we want to give our population an example, we need to start ourselves by doing a certain amount of things. And I think that the population will follow behind. In any event, it's always a pleasure, as I said, being here. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I hope next time I'll have some more callers, because, we always have some questions. As I say, there's no stupid questions. There are only sometimes stupid answers.
All right. Again, thanks for coming, and success. Hope that I'll be back sometime soon. All right.
For sure, pretty soon.
Good,
If you invite me, of course.
I'll invite you back. Don't worry. I'll be back soon. All right. Thanks. That's it for now. I'll see you next time. Until then, good night. Take care. Bye.